We have one. What's your name, friend? Ashley. We have our very first volunteer. I'm glad I didn't have to volunteer anybody. I have a very few ideas right now, but I've already asked what your favorite animal is. I've got a dog and I've got a rat. What's your favorite mythological animal? You like wyverns, dragons, bears, Bigfoot? You tell me. Dragons, any others? We've got one for dragon. We've got some favorite animals. And I have some ideas. So without further ado, Ashley, you're going to be in the story. Let's roll. Now, the question is this going to be a happy ending or not? If you would like a happy tale where Ashley wins valor, wins some treasure, some magic power, then I want to hear it now with a rousing roar. Yes! How about it? On the count of 3. Just make whatever noise you'd like, but make it loud. We're going to go with that. If you want a happy story, make some noise on the count of 3. 1, 2, you 2, 3. Happy. All right. The flip side is, well, we meet with some tragedy and something terrifying. If you like scary stories, the type that might leave you up tonight, then go ahead and hit us with a roar as well on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I think we're going to have a happy story, but it doesn't need to start all that happy. So, without further ado, story time has begun. Ashley remembered it being cold, but never quite this cold. This winter was the worst winter in their people's history on record, and Ashley knew she was forced to go out in that cold. The Picts had been warring with the Celts. They had been making raids against her people. Many of the men had lost their lives in the battles, and those that were left were starving as well. Everyone was starving. The wind had been so bitter and the cold so fierce that even the livestock died and shriveled where it lay. Ashley loved her animals more than anything. She loved her animals. She had a beloved shepherd dog of the Molosser type. The Romans gave them the Molossers, short and stout with massive heads. They'd give their life for the Romans. It was the ideal dog to fend off the massive wolves and the occasional bear that plagued the cold winters. It was the night that they were terrified of the most. The night is when the wolves might come. The night is when the wind howled and your bellies grumbled. And Ashley cried for her people. The hunters were going out farther and farther afield, farther than they ever had. Their totem was the bear. There were people of the bear. They worshiped the bear, the might, the power. They loved the bear above all, but they had gotten to a place that they had considered even eating a bear. It was taboo to their people. It was unheard of. Their totem animal. But when the hunters found the den, they found the massive she-bear inside, sleeping with her cubs. And they thought of their hungry children starving back home. They held council, and they decided to do the unthinkable. They slaughtered the bear where she lay in her den. It was Ashley who had went to help carry and pack the meat, that had heard the crying baby. She had heard the cub bear. Her heart had already been broken, but when she heard the cry of the bear, she begged the elders, begged the chieftains, please, let me have it. Let me bring it home. How will you feed it? She had no earthly idea, but her heart was moved, and she brought home the crying infant cub. It was so small that she could fit it in one hand. It was crying as it would for its mother. When she brought it back, she had no idea what to do and even how to care for the thing. The small amount of rations that she had been given, oats and gruel, she shared with the bear. And believe it or not, the small animal greedily lapped it up. This was a time of famine and trouble for all the people. It gave her cheer to care for the small bear, and quickly it grew, very quickly. And its rations were not the rations of a bear, but luckily before long, the small bear began to forage for itself. The winter intensified, and it was so cold the night that the raid happened. The Pictish warriors came with a cry. The screams were heard in the night. There were so few men to defend, but the sound of swords and the sound of shields rang. The spears were lifted off the walls, and the enfeebled men went to do battle with the Pictish horde. Their people had grown strong during the raids. They weren't starving. They were there for women. They were there for conquest, to steal what the Celts had, what little they had left. Ashley trembled in a corner. She held the small cub and it cried. I've never heard a bear cry like that. And she held the small bear underneath her as the warriors outside went to war. Ashley covered those that she loved, the bear included. It was so small and it had suffered so much. She whispered down to it, I failed you. I was here to protect you. I'm so sorry. I failed you all. As she looked around at those that she loved. Oh! The sound broke. There was a sound of a roar outside. The door nearly caved in. The Pictish warriors had arrived. Not long after, she heard the screams. If you've ever heard a man or a woman die in combat, it's not like what you would think. It's brutal. The brutality doesn't end there. You hear people crying out for their gods, crying out for their loved ones, their mothers, some their sons. Ashley cowered, but then she decided to pick up a sword. The women in her clan were not meant to. The women in their clan were not meant to hold swords. The bronze and the iron was the gift of the men for warfare. But when she picked up the sword, the small bear next to her let out a challenging roar. I've never seen or heard anything so sweet. The men, though, the Pictish men only laughed. Their cruelty etched in their faces in lines and cuts and battle scars. The blood seeping off of them showed their intentions. In their language, guttural and rough, they laughed at the woman. They called her a she-bear, and the small bear a cubling. They laughed, and they approached Ashley. She tried. She struck with her sword, and they struck her back. They knocked her to the ground. She roared. She wasn't quite done yet. She tried to get to her feet, but she had been hit so hard that she saw nothing but lights and bright stars. She began to pray to her gods in earnest. Roar! Again, for the second time, the roar came. But this time, it was not the Pictish men. They weren't crying out in joy or triumph, but in terror. She had heard a she-bear before. She had heard the raging of a massive bear once before, but nothing like this. There is no man's voice that could contend. Nothing in all the islands had ever heard anything like it. For the god bear had come, massive and white. It was as large as a horse bred for war. It grabbed one of the Pictish men up, savaged him, and threw him to the ground like a broken toy. It could not fit inside their hut, so it made its own way in, its massive head and shoulders powering forward. It fastened its eyes on the woman before it, bravely holding the sword. The other men had wisely dropped to the ground, frightened. Some had wet themselves, and Ashley was proud, as she should be. The bear locked eyes with her. It let out a snort, almost a snort of gratitude, not disdain. It looked at your feeble weapon, and then down at the cub that belonged to it. The stories of the god bear had been told by your people for centuries, but nobody believed. A bear, pure of white, a protector of the people in desperate times. Nobody believed, but you did. It's part of the reason you saved that wee cub out of love and obligation. So, my hat, dear Ashley, is off to you, warrior maiden of your people. You have surely earned the title of the she-bear of the Celts. Welcome, and thank you for being our very first story at Storytime. Let's give her a hand, friends. She did well. She faced off against evil, and she won with a little help of a friend. What do you think, friends? Did you enjoy that? Would anybody be brave enough? I don't know if I have time for another. Whoopsie. I sure hope that I do. Let's have a look. Well, you know I do. I have time for another. She did good, but we don't know what'll happen next. That bear just as easily could have snapped you up and gobbled you down. Are you friends enjoying yourselves so far? I sure hope that you are. I have nothing but water, no mead, water. And I challenge you to drink as much water as you can, and if you enjoy mead, as much of that as you can responsibly. There's a few mead tents, you'll see them. I think we are 5 or 6. I got a little sip last night, I tasted it. It's good, you'll likey. And we got plenty of other vendors, everything from turkey legs to tacos, I've been told. And Norse was very proud to tell me that these tacos are amazing. So if your belly gets a little rumbly, you know what to do. Head that way, find a vendor. And if you haven't found yourself some period garb and attire There are plenty of places here. And for the very first time, I found a little something. So our friend over at Badass Garb hooked me up this morning. I'm very grateful. So go check them out. You'll really like it. And if you get a chance to check out Red Artisan for a shield, everybody needs a good shield for their mantle. Go check those out. And all of our vendors have something special just for you. And if you find it, you were meant to have it. If you look at it and you want it, don't think twice. Grab it. Take it with you. You'll be happy. We're going to have another vote here after I drink some agua. And I want you guys to think up something that scares you, maybe for the next story, something that frightens you. And we might go with that. We got all kinds of fun coming up as well. I have some stuff written down. My lovely wife and assistant, Rochelle, you'll see with the even star. She has got it written down for me to help me because I'm old. I might not look it, but I'm old, Bilbo. Very old. We have, at 11:30, we have Carla, ex-Mystical, a contortionist performance. I caught a little bit of that. Thank you, friends, and it was really, really good. You guys don't want to miss that. A little bit after that, we have NorseForged Speaks. You definitely don't want to miss our Leeds Lord speaking. He is fantastic, and I'll tell you this, if you haven't already noticed, the Leeds and the Lord of the Land, they weren't there just to rule with an iron fist. They cared for their people. They were the lords of the land, but they made sure everybody had what they needed. And our Lord and host has done exactly that. So when you see him, show him some love. Maybe give him a hey. You'll be happy to hear it. This is where I need you to make noise. Can anybody hear me elsewhere? I hope you can hear me all over the place. I want everybody to yell. There's a hand up. Yes! I'd love to hear some noise makers. That's what I'd like for this next story. Yes, there we are. We're going to tell another story right now. I'm going to need a volunteer, a brave soul. But first, we're going to determine if this is going to be a happy story or a not so happy story. The last friend lived and lived well. They not only lived, but stories will be told by the bards about them. This next story, you might be a villain. So, if you don't mind being a villain, stick around. If you want a happy story where you're a hero, where you win valor, you win gold, you win some gift, then make noise now with a rousing roar on the count of 3. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Yes! We got a couple. Now, if you'd rather have a scary story, you don't necessarily need to be a villain, but it's not going to be a happy ending. Things are not going to go your way. If that's the type of story you might like next, then let me hear it on the count of 3 with a roar. Make some noise on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Oh, I heard something about a dragon earlier, too. Would anybody bravely face off against a dragon in this place? Anybody? I see a lot of men, and I see a lot of women with swords and shields, but are any brave enough to actually do battle with the beast? You talk big, but who would step up and unsheathe their sword and do battle with such a monstrous being? If they even exist. The bards say they do, but nobody in living memory has seen one. But I believe. I don't know about you, but I do. Who would like a story? Who's brave? Don't look me in the eye, young man. You? Oh, we have a braveling. What's your name? Eli! All right, Eli, we're going to do something very special here for you. We're going to give you 2 votes. You're going to be in the thick of it. But at a certain point, when things look like there's no hope, we're going to give you an option. All right? So be brave. Eli looked out across the sky. It was beautiful and blue. He couldn't even imagine anything in his young life going wrong. The sheep were feeding, the sound of the horses in the field. There hadn't been war in their land for 100 years. Everybody was fat and prosperous. And, of course, that's when the trouble began. It started with a cow. Eli's friend had cried that their cows had gone missing by the time the men had gone to the field. The cows had indeed gone missing. There was evidence left behind, but nobody could make anything of it. It seemed as if the cow had just disappeared. All that had been left behind was a scant amount of blood. The old bards began wagging their tongues, talking of wyverns and worms and dragons. But others, the wise men, laughed. We haven't heard stories of dragons in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We believed them to be myths, but the bards said no, the dragons were real, and this is evidence of them. It wasn't long until the bards were proven right, and they saw their first dragon. Eli and his friend were in the field playing. They had just climbed an old oak tree. It was an oak tree that they loved playing on. It was sacred to their people. It was one of his favorites, and the adults never went out to the sacred groves, so the children were able to play there freely. And it was the children who saw the dragon first. Nobody believed, not one adult had believed them until they saw the beast for themselves. It was in the night, always in the night. The dragon comes stealthily in the dark. You could barely make it out as the light was dying. They saw something massive and black cruising through the night sky, so big that it blotted out the moon briefly. And they went running as fast as they could for home to tell the adults, but nobody believed them. That night around the fires, they sat and enjoyed their porridge and their meat. The children were scared. They were terrified. They wanted to go to bed early to hide where they felt safe. They knew that what they had seen was a dragon. And that night, their dragon came to visit. Eli's home was at the very far side of the village. He heard something, bang! A massive clang and a shout, and then the screams began. The people had known nothing but peace for so long that very few plows had been beaten into swords. There were hardly any bows left in the village, for they farmed for their meat, and they harvested their grain like the civilized folk. They sent their boats out on the water to catch fish. They didn't hunt. They had no need to protect themselves from wild beasts. Their dogs did that for them, and the last wolf had been slaughtered in the area. Eli listened in terror. They whispered to each other, "The dragon," and soon after they heard the beast. It's nearly impossible for a human to even describe the sounds that it made. It, in many ways, sounded like a human, but it was much deeper, of course, and the screams and the screeches were unearthly. But not long after, the sound of the men fighting and dying. The dragon didn't stay long that night. It was only there for a short while. Eli gratefully listened to it depart and the cries cease. They tallied up the missing and the dead in the morning. 13 from their village had gone missing. The dragon would need to be appeased. The old bard said, "We need to feed it. We need to offer it victims." It was the old way, and it was unheard of to offer a sacrifice, a human or a beast, to appease the dragon. It's starving, and it's hungry, and it'll continue to come until we feed the beast, the old men said. But who would it be? Criminals, the old men said. We'll bring in criminals. And they did. The very next day, they brought out all the people in the jail. There were 5 men, ragged and weak. They were led out by an old horse, and they were never seen again. The dragon stayed gone for nearly 6 months before the next visit. They had all talked of moving, but where do you go? This is our home, everyone said. Eli had begged for them to leave, but they wouldn't. They stayed, and when the dragon came next, it was more destruction, and the warriors convened. What are we going to do? They came together after the second attack. How are we going to contend with such a beast? The old stories say that they can be killed, they can be fought, but we've seen what it's done to our homes. There's no one here that even has any idea how to fight the beast. And it was Eli, his small voice quavering, that said that he would go to the neighbors, the Vikings, the Bear Sharks, the people that were left alone, best not even mention. They were a hard people, a tall, strong people, far to the north. It would require going to the open ocean, out in the deep, past to the Nag's Head, to the land that they lived. But Eli said that he would go. The others refused, saying he was too young. But he went anyway. He snuck off during the night, stealing his father's boat. Before he knew it, he was in the tempest and the gale, on his way, putting the sail up. By morning, he reached the shore, and he was met with his very first Viking warrior. They were on the shore themselves with a massive fire. When they saw the boy, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. When he approached them, they laughed. "A young warrior we have!" They could tell immediately by his facial tattoos the people that he had come from. They weren't enemies. They did trade with the Vikings occasionally. But how did you come to be here? When he told them of the dragon, their eyes lit up. They weren't surprised. They had done battle with the beast and lost many men. But they had called for their greatest warriors, and they were in arms right now. They were in the sacred place in the grove, getting ready themselves. Eli was led to them, and with these warriors, he showed them his home place and where the dragon had attacked. The warriors were large and strong, but even they were afraid of the dragon. Even they had seen. One man had lost an arm, another had had his face gouged. The beast comes fast. It's powerful, but it does bleed, the men said. They had no earthly idea how to contend with such a beast other than raw force. Eli was determined to go with them. And that night, the small boy trailing behind, they went to do battle with the dragon. They had seen where it had come from, the lair high on the mountain. It was a trip of hours, and Eli was getting tired by the time they arrived at the mouth of the cave. They heard the beast before they saw it. It sounded terrible. You could hear it growling and rumbling in the cave. When they heard the screech, they knew that it was a were. Not one man in living memory had seen anything like the dragon. The foul beast came out on all fours. It was large as anything that they had ever seen, as large as one of their ships. It had to be 60 to 70 feet long from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail. Its skin was iridescent black with green, shiny, almost like oil on the form of water. It was beautiful in its own terrifying way. The men had seen many things in their travels and faced off against many terrifying enemies, but they knew right then and there that this was beyond them. The bravest of the warriors clanged his shield. Eli hid behind the pine trees. He didn't know what to do but to get behind the warriors and let them do what they did best. As he was hiding, the first warrior approached, and the dragon made mincemeat. How can a man contend with such a beast? It merely picked him up and shredded him. It pulled him apart the same way you would with a piece of bread to dunk into the stew. The other men came in a formation, their shields held high, their spears jabbing. They drew blood on the beast. It angered it. Lashing with its tail, it knocked a group of the men down. The arrow men began throwing lead arrows into the beast, one after the other, finding bits in its armor, and they were making it pay. But the beast was too fierce. It stood on two legs, buffeting the men with its massive wings, so powerful the wind that it knocked them back. And Eli, seeing something that the others had missed, seeing something in the cave, realized that it was up to him. He knew that he had been sent here for a reason. He had been sent here to live or to die with these men. He was no longer a child, no. He was one of them, a bear shark, a warrior from beyond the thin places of the world. He felt it inside of him, the roar welling. He felt the change. He felt different. He saw a discarded axe on the ground. The beast was busily engaged in doing battle. Its back was turned to him, but he wasn't heading for the beast, but something else. He saw the young wormling in the cave. It was the size of a horse, peeking around the cave behind its parent. The dragon, the fierce protector, whether mother or father, he did not know and he did not care. He saw the young dragon and he knew the way to win this battle. Faster than he had any right to run, he ran. At one point, he went to all fours like the beast. The men stood back. One of them, only one, an old graybeard, dropped his shield and he watched what came next, his mouth nearly on the ground. He had heard stories of the Bearshark warriors. Their warriors went to battle and they looked the part, but Eli was the beast. He was no longer the boy. Some ancestral spirit had come over him. The axe in his hand he should not have been able to lift. It was made for a grown man. The thing had to weigh 40 pounds, a two-handed weapon, but he held it in one hand. He saw the small beast and he raised that weapon, lifting it high. He heard the dragon roar, and then a clear, cold voice, the dragon spoke. Stop! It said, its voice, old and creaky. Eli did. His blow frozen in the air. He knew this was coming, you see. He knew already what would come to pass. He didn't want to hurt the beast, not one bit. He wanted to end the bloodshed. He wanted the dragon off of his land. If he had to kill it to get that, he would do it. But he knew that this would happen. He stopped, and the dragon begged his mercy. Terms! Eli shouted in the voice of a grown man or a bear. The warriors surrounding him dropped to one knee. They couldn't believe what was happening. They chanted. One man clutched a rune in his hand. They spoke in reverent terms of dragons and bears. And Eli, mighty Eli, he wasn't quite himself. One of the men got too close and paid the price as Eli backhanded him, knocking him to the ground. He wasn't in his right frame of mind. The dragon knew the old spirits and the old ways. There are many things in the land that can contend with the dragon. Most of us will never hear their names. Old spirits, things that have walked this earth long before the dragonkin and our kind. This spirit, a very spirit of nature, a genus loci of the place itself, of the land and the people, spoke through Eli with the voice of the land. Powerful. Terms! The land cried through the warrior Eli, and the dragon quickly came to terms. It would leave their land, never to return again. It needed to be fed, and it needed a rich land, as their people were dying as well. Eli said, not our land, not today, but we do have some enemies. We do know a few people. That is the story of Eli and the dragon, and him saving his people. Well done, Eli. Well done indeed. Let's hear a rousing cheer for Eli on the count of 3. 1, stand up, warrior. Stand for your applause on the count of 3. A 1, a 2, and a 3. Roar! Well done, Eli. All right, I think we're coming to just about the end of my story time, and I am excited that you're here. Thank you so much for being here at NorseForged Gathering 5. Can you imagine we've had 5 of these? This is my second. Who's beat me? Who's been here more than 2? Anybody been to all 5? Anybody at all? How about 4? Anybody been to 4? 3? Hey, we got a winner. Listen, guys, I want you to hydrate. It's very important. We got some cloud cover. For you pasties, you got a little bit of the pale skin, put some sunscreen on. If you've got a bald cap like me, definitely put some on or you're going to burn. But drink your water. We don't want anybody getting sunstroke. We also have mead, so make sure you drink as much water as you drink mead. We have lovely, lovely, lovely meat vendors. We have food, everything from tacos to turkey drums to elephant ears. Calories don't count here, not one little bit. Just so you know that, I've been told by Norse himself, you can't get fat right now at the gathering. So it's just for a limited time. But we now have Carla coming on. We're going to have, let's see, what time is it, guys? 11:30. So we have Carla. You are absolutely amazing. I caught a little bit of the show, guys. I am in awe of contortionists. I really am. They do something that would leave me breaking and crying for mommy. It's absolutely fantastic. She is very, very good at what she does. You guys give a hand for her when she comes up, and you'll enjoy the show, I promise. Last night it was a little bit out in the dark by the firelight, and it truly was a mystical experience. And it took me back to a time that I've never even been to. So you guys will enjoy this. And not long after that, we're going to go down and hear from NorseForged himself. Sorry, I got my little crib notes here. And after her amazing performance at 11:45, Mr. NorseForged himself, our liege lord, the Jarl, the king of the place, is going to come down and he's going to speak. He's got all kinds of stuff to say. You know, he always does, and it's always good. It's always very good. His hospitality will be known far and wide, I believe. We have been absolutely treated like royalty, and we sure hope that you have. If you have any questions here, find yourself volunteers. Do we have any volunteers that can hear me right now? I got to get right where I'm talking, right on this thing. Any volunteers, if you hear me, from time to time, make some noise so our friends will know who you are if they have any questions. But go get yourself some food if you don't have some food already, and get ready to enjoy the show.